We did over 60 Google bombs. Every one of them became the #1 search term. And that was 60 different events. Sometimes we would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms in a row would be #1 through #3, #1 through #5. Google changed their algorithm to, quote, target alternative media sites and content farms like DrudgeReport.com, Infowars.com. And we did see some traffic issues, but we're growing so fast, we're still growing despite that, but it did take some of our steam out of us. Now I've done 3 or 4 Google bombs in the last month. I've slowed down on them just because I don't want to wear it out. It's such an effective tool. And we've done, I guess, 3 or 4 of them, and a couple of them didn't work. Like the Max Kaiser one last week didn't work. So we need to do a test today with a very simple term to see if they're blocking my name or if they're blocking the algorithm, the system with their algorithm. You go to the Google search box, you put Alex Jones in, and you hit enter. Then you go and click the cursor in the middle of Alex Jones to make it a new search. You don't have to re-enter the whole name, just click on it, and then hit enter again, and do that about 50 times. And the power of this audience, millions of listeners, it will be #1 if... Now, the good news is, even though they've been obviously manipulating it, one day when we failed last week, the show re-aired on History Channel about Bohemian Grove, so it went to #1. People were organically searching that. So already our terms, our videos, our stories, liberty issues, they're already routinely in the top 10 search terms. And they've released yearly numbers, that Alex Jones, Infowars.com is always in the top 50 or so. This last year was in the top 10. Naturally on its own. So they're not going to stop us, but they're trying to slow us down. So search the term Alex Jones. Also search 6, just the number, don't spell it out, 6-year-old groped. 6-year-old groped. And it'll probably be the top term or top search. They have 2 different systems. But let's get that out to expose the 6-year-old. And speaking of that, we played part of the newscast earlier where we now find out more of what happened than just what somebody in line about to be searched with his children. You hear those children saying, I don't want him to touch me. I don't want him to do that to my clothes. I mean, think of little kids, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. Think about your children. I mean, my children are, pretty outgoing, but sometimes I'll take them to a public event or something, and they kind of, with a big crowd of people, grab my leg, and people say, hi there, little girl, hi there, little boy, and they kind of, that's a normal instinct for a child to not like strangers right away so that they don't get kidnapped. I mean, it's a good instinct. It's kind of like a puppy. You've had a puppy for a month. It's real rambunctious and happy. When the repairman comes over to fix the refrigerator, the puppy hides between your legs. That's a normal mammal instinct. So you're at a checkpoint. There's people in uniforms. I've seen them at TSA in Houston screaming at people, yelling, freaking out when the lines get too long. You're being yelled at. You put in a machine. Mommy can't be in there with you. It's hitting you with radiation. Then they take you out. On top of it, people say, well, just do the scan. You won't do the search. They're doing both, folks. That was always the plan. Then, for 2 minutes, she sticks her hand down the girl's pants, grabs her buttocks, runs her fingers through her hair. I mean, this is incredible. People 10 years ago, if a cop randomly pulled you over, started doing this to your kid, most people would get violent. They're training you that the government can get in your space and force vaccines on you, take blood tests. They take your baby's blood at birth. That's now declassified and admitted. This is the criminal nature of these people. So I wanted to cut to a piece that is in the article up on Infowars.com. We have the quote in the article, parents threatened by TSA before 6-year-old was groped. Girl then broke down in tears. And when you read down here, here's the transcript. Initially, she was just confused, Todd Drexel said, the doctor. After she broke down crying because she really didn't understand what she'd done wrong. And then kids also they asked Michelle here in my office when it happened, Mommy, I thought strangers aren't supposed to touch me, much less touch me on my privates. Think about Jesse Ventura. Ron Paul, they do it to everybody. And if you don't like it, they throw you out and then give you an $11,000 fine. And now they're going to be on the streets of America. They go on to say they did ask for alternatives. I asked for her to be rescanned. They just refused and said they were going to do what they were going to do. Selena Drexel said, adding the TSA supervisor made it clear in a nonverbal way, bowing up, that there would be trouble. 90% of communication is nonverbal. If the parents caused a fuss and refused, and that was a quote, to allow the pat-down to be completed. It's not a pat-down, it's a groping. I've had district attorneys on saying it's illegal, it's criminal. Well, start indicting these people. And there are a bunch of states, now 9 states, passing laws, on the verge of passing laws, saying they're going to have the state police come arrest your butt. You understand that? The cops aren't above the law. I'm not above the law. Barack Obama isn't above the law. And these TSA people under Homeland Security power grab, you're not above the law. So let's play the clip of this upstanding, good-looking couple, doctor, his wife, his children. I mean, you know, if they can do it to these people, they can do it to anybody. And that's who they target. They're training Americans who'd never be in police contact to be basically prisoners. And to say no, this is training your child not to say no. That's what the school drills are. They load them on buses, take them to federal centers where they announce that their homeschoolers come to kill them. It's about just training kids to have learned helplessness. Now, originally when this went on the web, it was other sources, and so that's why we thought somebody else shot it, because you can hear other children off camera saying, I don't want them to touch my clothes. I don't want them to touch me there. You can hear it in the audio if you boost it. And then they lead her away for a, quote, drug test. It never really becomes clear what that was. But now we're learning more of what happened here. And I do want to get these parents on the show. Obviously, everybody else in the world is going to be trying to do that who has a media platform. But we're on that today. But we're going to be talking more about this to come. Because if they can get away with this, they can get away with everything. Again, I'm going to repeat this. The state lies and says you got to take vaccines. It's the law. There is no law. It's all color of law fraud. These are criminals. The state takes your baby's blood at birth for almost 40 years. This has been going on since 1972. By the way, it goes on in Australia and England and Europe since the early 1970s. It's global. A global secret program of taking your blood and DNA testing and putting a record of it, and then selling it to Big Pharma, who then patents your unique blood proteins. That's how a lot of this started coming out a few years ago. We, of course, reported on it more than a decade ago. So, I mean, there's an example of who these criminals are, who this system is. They're a pack of lying scum. Why do you think the government's been caught all over the world, our government and others, nerve gassing their own troops, testing radiation, biologicals on their own troops, the UN injecting people with live polio, live syphilis, our own Pentagon doing it, our own Department of Health doing it, in the U.S., in other countries? It comes out every week now, new stuff. They're testing their federal, their state, their jail guards, their jail doctors doing tests in Huntsville, Texas. It comes out. Sometimes lethal stuff. It's to create an army of evil and to see if scientists and government doctors will follow these orders for the, quote, greater good. Then it creates cadres of people that'll keep things secret. And then those armies of evil people go out and recruit others to create even bigger armies of evil. I mean, they kept it secret for decades that the 1959 total meltdown at Simi Valley, Southern California, into L.A., radiated them many times, 200-plus times, ABC News reported, worse than 3 Mile Island. And no one knew for decades. This is a group that practices secrecy. They couldn't keep it secret. The government went ahead and admitted they did it when they felt like it. Kind of like all over the country, they kept it secret. They're using laptops, school laptops, to watch kids. Now schools just admit they're watching them at home. It's just like Gulf of Tonkin, kept secret from 1964 to 2004. 40 years that the Gulf of Tonkin was staged. Now, how did we know it was staged? Well, because some of the top officers on the ships, when they got back 6 months later after their rotation to San Diego, told the San Diego Herald Tribune in 1964 that the ships were not attacked and it was a lie. Then that became a rumor because folks didn't have the original newspaper, so you were called a conspiracy theorist for 40 years until they declassified it 2004 and released LBJ on the phone with McNamara, Secretary of Defense, saying the day before, we're going to stage this. Then the day, get ready, it's going to happen. This is what you tell the press conference tomorrow. And LBJ's taking orders. He's going, all right, I tell them, but we leave it kind of nebulous where they don't know. All right. Now just remember not to be too clear exactly in case other stuff comes out. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. President. I mean, it's just a group of con artists, scum, filth, taking your baby's blood at birth, now sticking their hands down their pants. What does it take to get people to wake up to the fact that the country's been taken over by tyrants? It's illegitimate. We got to remove the stinking government. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the sites, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.